The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
The most important decision you can make right now is what do you stand for, Danny? Goodness or badness?
By that much.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the OSG Sports College Football Podcast featuring us, the online sports guys. In this corner, OSG J-Dub, J. Wilkerson 16, OSG
the other
Nelson,
J-Dub.
A story of J-Dubs.
and OSG Phil, myself. Guys, before we get started, that was kind of different last week, wasn't it?
Hey, wait a minute there, brother. If you only knew how long it took for that marker to get cleaned off of my face.
I was going to ask about that.
Oh, my goodness. That was not the best idea in the world.
Strong
soap and a razor. I just
I'm
missed
surprised-
the
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm so surprised you don't have some residue there from
Really?
the strong soap and some skin irritation. But
Yeah, I lost a layer of my epidermis.
Wow.
you're still a handsome man.
Last week's episode, I heartily recommend that you go back and look at it. We had a little bit of fun with some things,
Yeah.
and it fit with the theme about who's actually in charge in college football. And speaking of who's in charge, probably the biggest talker this week is the guy who is supposedly in charge of the Big Ten, Kevin Warren, who is taking heat pretty much from every and anybody who has a thought, opinion, idea, or otherwise on what the Big Ten's decisions were about college football. And guys, is this just bad PR, or did he not think? Did they just decide to make a decision without consulting everybody, or are they doing the right thing here, or all the above?
I was going to say, it's choice D, all the above.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with any one of those answers.
Well, I found it interesting. And first of all, I need to tip the hat to the Lincoln Star Journal because they've been on top of this all week. And the fact is that Bill Moose, the athletic director in Nebraska, just appears to be pulling whatever hair that's left in his head out over all the decision making that is going on in the conference office in Rosemont, Illinois. And, you know, the thing that kind of, it leaves me speechless, to be honest with you, about what's been going on with the Big Ten. And that's the fact that when the meeting was, let's see if I can get this right. Guys like Barry Alvarez and Gene Smith, when the final decision was made, were left out of the room, and it was Gene Smith and a lot of the medical personnel. In fact, according to the Journal Star, the 12-2 number that Dan Patrick reported on his radio show was actually the medical personnel within the 14 schools that voted as far as whether to play or not to play. And it was Nebraska and Iowa's personnel that voted for playing. And therefore, the athletic directors and I guess the presidents were kind of shunned out of the process. And Kevin Warren pretty much made this decision on his own. And I think we're starting to see some of that come out into the light. And that's why you're seeing an uproar from the parents of players. That's why you're starting to see lawsuits flying around. And I don't think going rogue is the right term, but it might be. I don't know. But it just seems like this was a decision that was kind of made hastily.
There was
Is
a
it the
Greg Doyle
optics
from the
here, guys?
Indianapolis Star. Well, Greg Doyle from the Indianapolis Star just put out an article in USA Today saying, stop blaming Kevin Warren. Said if you want to blame someone, blame every president of every university in the Big Ten. It's their fault because they didn't do what they needed to do to get ready for the coronavirus. So just because Kevin Warren is the face of the Big Ten, that's why he's catching heck from everybody right now. But he's like, stop blaming Kevin. It's not his fault. I'm not saying I agree with him, right? But I thought it was an interesting take. Like, if the universities did what they're supposed to do, then maybe the Big Ten would still be playing. But ultimately, the flack does fall squarely on Kevin Warren's shoulders.
When you're looking at protests and lawsuits, I have two questions that I'll pose to the floor. One, does Kevin Warren survive this? Two, do we see another round of realignment because of the displeasure of schools from the state of Iowa and the state of Nebraska because of what happened in this current situation?
Oh, I think the realignment's coming, whether this happened or not. I think the galactic realignment's on its way.
I agree with you there, but I don't think it has anything to do with the Big Ten because I don't think any of those schools are going to leave the Big Ten. They've got too much of a financial interest involved and too many regional rivalries that they just don't want to mess up. If anything, if the Big Ten was smart, they would just kind of jettison Rutgers and Maryland because what have they done for that league?
Yeah.
I think when you're going to see realignment, I think you're going to see Pac-12 schools bolting. And I'm looking at you, Colorado, and I'm looking at you, Utah, because that's the league to me that is probably going to suffer the worst pain of any over their decision of not playing football. And what has alarmed me, a couple of things have alarmed me about that. One, you're a football-centric school. You're a powerhouse. You're a school that has done the most. Southern Cal is kind of taking okay, that's fine approach to it. You don't see any pushback at all from your marquee football program. And the other is, look at how many Southern California recruits who are always earmarked for UCLA and Southern Cal are coming to the SEC, are coming to the Big 12. So to me, I think that's the league that is extremely vulnerable. Of course, a leadership vacuum there.
And a money vacuum.
And a money vacuum too. That's the league to me that is really in danger of breaking apart. And the American is ready to take that spot. And you can see a Utah or a Colorado strengthening up the Big 12. Where does UCLA and USC or Arizona State go? I mean, right now, Pac-12 is on the same level as the Mountain West.
Ooh. Shots fired.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you where the American fits in because you have the Big 12, you have the SEC, the ACC, and the American. The American is literally sitting there waiting for their opportunity, and I think that they're going to come out of this smelling like absolute roses when this is all said and done.
Yeah, and the Big Ten, really, it's more of an optical issue. It looks bad the way it was handled. And if you had left that decision strictly to the coaches, athletic directors, and players, they'd be playing right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yep.
But they're not the only ones that are going through do we or don't we issues, because you've got the ACC and the SEC who are gearing up to play here really soon too, particularly the ACC who's ramping up even faster. You've got North Carolina State having to put things on hold because of outbreaks on their campus. And then we come to find out this weekend that North Carolina is going to have to do school remotely because nobody seems to be able to keep away from each other there.
Yeah.
And you're up there in North Carolina. What's the fallout?
The fallout is lengthy because UNC President Peter Hans came out last week and blamed the students of the universities for causing this crazy scandal. Because I know Carolina had, I think, 16 or 17 outbreaks of COVID. Been in school for 2 weeks, and they sent people home. Said you must pack out, and then their deadline to put in request to get tuition was on that exact same day that they were sent home. So they had no time to get that in. And now Mac Brown came out and said, football program, because football athletics have been suspended on Carolina's campus. They're coming back, I think, this week. And he said, yeah, our athletes will be safer now that students are on campus. And that caused a furor. Dave Doran at NC State has all the time putting his foot in his mouth about this kind of stuff. And both Carolina and NC State have gone completely virtual. And they were only in school for a couple of weeks. Kids were in class when they got the notification on their phone that they were going to be sent home.
Well, even on the other side of the state, East Carolina is going through the same exact thing.
But then you look at Duke and Wake Forest, they're not, they're having none of that issues. They're having they don't have a single, I think maybe a couple of positive cases, but no outbreaks as of right now. Granted, public versus a private, I understand the difference there. Yeah. But as I talked a couple of weeks ago, Wake Forest's lockdown was insane. You had a two-factor authentication to even get onto campus. And then you can't do that on NC State or Carolina campus. It's just these outbreaks are crazy. And to think that in-person schooling is possible, and even having athletics without kids on campus, there's a furor up here between both sides. One saying, if students can't be on campus, how in the world are we going to play athletics? And then you have the Mac Browns of the world saying,
Mac Brown, who basically says, we're better that you're not here.
Yeah, go home. Keep your coronavirus away from campus. We can play football now. And that, the fallout from what Mac Brown said, it's coming fast and furious, the positive and the negatives from that. But there is some truth to what he said, believe it or not. If you don't have the people doing stupid stuff on campus and getting the corona and passing it, then maybe, just maybe, the measures they have in place might actually work.
Well, yeah, the first thing I'm thinking of right now when you say that, J-Dub, is the university presidents. I got to understand you're dealing with 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids that are going to go out and party.
Yes.
And there has to be some kind of contingency plan. Why isn't a dormitory there on said campus just for the sole purpose of quarantining coronavirus?
There was
like they have at Notre Dame.
No, they had one at Carolina, and literally it was they had 5 rooms left after a week. They had an entire dorm for quarantine students, and they had 5 rooms left after a week. That was the point where they sent everybody home. Their dorm was packed. They had nowhere else to put them.
Guys, I remember early on in this whole pandemic thing in college football, wasn't there something about the college presidents who said that if we don't have students on campus, we're not playing college football this year?
I remember that.
Yep. Mac Brown seems to disagree.
Pretty much everybody seems to disagree at this point in time.
When you're seeing a fact that you're going to furlough and lay off people, that's what the Big Ten's doing right now. And Pac-12 schools are having to do that right now. And when you're talking about deficits that could approach, 9 figures.
Yeah.
That's why you're seeing football games being played without students there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also see up here something interesting came out. David Cutcliffe over at Duke has said that COVID has changed how he's coaching his team, because Cutcliffe's taken over the play calling this year for Duke.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's working on the relationship between kids and monitoring their mental health, and they're seeing it and they're worried. And he's becoming more of a he's always been a player's coach, but he's becoming more of a connected to them. And he said it's changing how we're coaching, changing how football in general is being handled. And Cutcliffe is actually said this is growing him as a coach, believe it or not. Said has got a better connection with his players. And so if there is going to be a positive reaction to this, maybe keeping an eye on the players' mental health during this, we can't forget about that as well.
And you're talking about a coach that was a student assistant with Paul W. Bryant at Alabama, and that's where his mentorship began. And, I've known Coach Cutcliffe for a long time, and he's as old school as you can get. But I tell you, he has an open mind, and J-Dub, he's showing us right now what not only a great coach he is, but what a great individual and a great educator he is.
Exactly, and how he really cares about his players.
What you're seeing now is coaches who used to say, "Oh, rub some dirt on it. It's just a stinger. Go ahead and shake it off." All those things are going out the window now. Coaches want to know if their players aren't feeling well before they show up. It's like, tell me that there's something wrong. Tell me you're not feeling well before you show up here today. If something's wrong, just go ahead and call. I don't care what time of day it is. Just reach out to me and tell me, because you're better for the collective by being isolated than you would be by being a part of the collective and being a part of the process, when you could make things worse by actually showing up. You really are seeing the tenor of coaching change.
Being game ready is going to take on a whole different meaning this year.
That's not such a bad thing either. I mean, it's getting inside your kid, the heads of the kids that you're coaching, and then being able to relate to them, being able to communicate with them, and being able to do what's best for them. And there's not really a downside to that, quite honestly.
No, it's just but the fact that we've all been at practices at multiple levels: college, high school, pro, semi-pro, whatever, done it, pickup. We've seen what the tenor has been, and the tenor has been fairly consistent. Coaches have certain philosophies, and you'll have the coaches that are fans of Oklahoma and suicides, and that's just how they bring up their students and their student athletes into being a part of it. They yell, they cuss, they scream. You have other coaches who are just as intense, but they're mentors. But you still had that underpinning of those ideas that we've all grown up seeing. Now the inverse is becoming true for the success of not just the sport, but for the student, the growth of the student athlete, and the growth of the coaches, mentally as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I was raised on a football field. I mean, you 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I mean, I've had coaches at multiple levels tell me there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? And now that, again, even that's going to take a different take, because, with all the heart issues and the lung issues and things that students are seeing, in this age of COVID, like Nelson, like you said, things are just going to change. And I think that might even be a permanent change moving forward.
Guys, we're about halfway through the first half of the review here, the second quarter, if you will.
Second quarter. We're changing ends.
For those of you watching at home on YouTube or listening at home on Spreaker or any of the other podcasting networks, make sure you have some input on the conversation. What do you think about things? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. It's not hard to find us. Just look up at OSG Sports on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We're there. Really not hard to find. Send us an email, osgsports@gmail.com. Let us know what you want to talk about. Give us some topics here. Bring it on. Let us know what you think. We'd be happy to talk about that stuff. And guys, one of the things that I noticed this week with the SEC is they issue some guidance that not only addresses the NCAA testing levels and what the NCAA wants to do, they're taking it to another level, which I like to see. Offering up that third day of testing each week and screening for heart conditions and things like that. Is that where everybody should be if they want to play college football? Are they setting the bar again?
I mean, as a former player, I almost say, yeah, that's where everybody needs to be. I mean, it's a player protection issue. It's a coaching and staff issue. I mean, and I'm going to say, if we're going to play, I mean, that's where you need to be. Just if I was a player, I would feel safe in that type of an environment.
No, I'm right there with J-Dub. And in this case, I'm going to defer to the ex-college athlete here on the panel when it comes to what you're looking for the health of the student athlete. So I will second J-Dub's motion, considering he has the experience that the other three of us do not.
Well, you guys always know my stand. Anything that's good for the college athlete, I'm for.
Yep.
And yes, the SEC has always been ahead of the curve on things like this. And this is a good policy.
Especially when it's a football-centric conference, and this is where we need to really, set the tone. And I think the SEC is saying, look, ACC and Big 12, if you want to play, if you want to run with the big dogs, this is the bar. And I think that they're going to follow willingly. I think you'll even see the American probably jump up and do some of this as
Yeah,
well.
that was.
Yeah, I agree. Again, the SEC is a trendsetter here, and the other ones are falling. And yeah, they need to follow that example because, I hope they play. I mean, I love the fact that these three conferences, and including the American, are sticking to their guns. And yes, we're going to have some spread. Yes, we're going to have some setbacks. But use baseball as an example because Major League Baseball has had how many outbreaks, and they've stuck to the course, and it's worked. And I hope that college football can do the same.
And I like the fact they're adding in the heart tests. All the things, with the electric, you can do like the EKG and ECG and things that before you can get clear back to come in. I think they're really, I guess, pushing that, we care about our student athletes. We care about the game, but we also care about the athletes. And I think that as a player and as a former coach, I think that there's no other place for a conference to be right now.
Here's the question I have, and this is something that I addressed this week on theonlinesportsguys.com.
Excellent.
And it's the one real thing that I looked at with, I guess, basically, for lack of a better way to put it, the people's eyebrow and like, really? And that's when the SEC started announcing the attendance and the amount of people they were going to let into their football stadiums this year. I mean, you're talking about, 25,000 people at Georgia, 30,000 people at Texas A&M. Some of the other schools, a percentage of their capacity. I'm not against having fans come to a game, but guys, all this talk about keeping players safe and keeping everybody on a campus safe, and then you're letting this many people gather in one spot? What the hell?
It defeats the purpose of trying to stop the spread because think about it. There was the Alabama AD sent out that picture of Tuscaloosa, all those 1,000 people in line and trolling them. They're not going to be wearing masks. They're not going to be socially distancing. It's unless they have their stands set up to where this is an area and they go through and actually cordon off areas. I mean, I've been to Jordan Hare. It's going to be insane to try to keep that distance. I think that it's crazy to have that number of fans in an arena. I just think it's wrong. I said it. Yes, I'll go on record saying I think it's wrong.
Well, what I've read is that masks have to be worn in the facility.
Who's going to be enforcing it though? You got 25,000 people. You got one little security guard saying you got a mask off. How are you going to enforce that?
And that's one of the questions. And is it a zero tolerance policy? And I will say that, my guess is I want to know if you're going to get your temperature shotgunned as you're walking in the door. If you're over 100.4, which seems to be the magic number, then are you turned away? And then you're going to cause something of a riot at whatever gate you're on because you know that person is going to raise a stink. I know that, and I'm looking at it this way. When it comes to fans and fan numbers, right now I'm looking at those percentages as just right now. Those things may change later depending on how departments of public health look at spread, look at numbers, look at what have you. I understand where colleges and campuses are coming from, but there are too many instances right now on college campuses where sometimes I look at it and go, we just don't deserve nice things. And you want to sit there and you want to shake folks. And it's like, look, if you want this stuff, wear a mask. But at the same time, this message should have been put out there first and foremost in March.
Thank you.
It's not like you're trying to cram for a test in astronomy 399 and you're trying to get in the door and get a passing grade at the end of the quarter. You've got to prepare for your test. And then when it's time to take that final exam, be ready for the final. Don't do the all-nighter and then sit there and think that you're going to get that B+ that you're looking for so you can make Dean's List. That's my whole thing. If you'd had this approach from the beginning, we wouldn't be where we are now. That's just my own personal 2 cents.
And you're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be the minority in this one. I don't have an issue with a limited capacity of personnel or fans in the stands. And to me, this is being done because you've got big money donors
No doubt.
that are speaking here.
Uh-huh.
But after the experience I saw in Bristol for the All-Star race, uh, I think it can be controlled. Now, the virus, you cannot stop the spread.
Right.
But you can slow it down.
Yeah.
But I'm not one of these that says that you can stop it. And I've got to re-educate myself a little bit on the statistics. Unfortunately, I've kind of laxed on that. So please give me a little
okay.
break on that.
Oh, it's all right. But no, I think that, Wilkie, I think you have a point but I think that at the same time, it comes down to your plan. And I think that there are too many places that are trying to cram for a plan instead of having a lot of forethought and sitting there and saying, okay, if A, then B, instead of trying to get something in and jam it into a space and sit there and it's like, okay, 25%, 30%. And I know that Louisiana is entirely different as well. So, I mean, their numbers are off the tier 2 and tier 3 were off the charts when it was the number of folks that were going to be let in the door. But I just think that I would have liked to have had a plan a lot earlier than this. I am willing to stipulate that I know that plans change. So the numbers that I'm hearing right now, it's like, all right, fine, this is what it is right now. I just would like to know who's going to be in charge of making sure that if there are masks that are mandatory, who's going to be in charge of making sure that everyone's wearing their masks? Are you spaced properly? Is social distancing being performed? How are they going to let you in to the stadium? Is it one way in, one way out? Are you going to make sure that you're socially distanced and you're not crammed in a line as you're trying to get in the door? There are a lot of things here that we're missing information on. And I hope it's just done the right way if you're going to have percentages walking in the door.
Well, you have this other thing to think about too. You got Bronco Mendenhall up in Virginia saying he doesn't necessarily want, he's worried about having players on campus without students on campus. If you can't come to school, if you can't be in a classroom of 25 to 50 people because of the COVID issue, how are you going to have 25,000 people in a football stadium?
Well, I've got a couple points if you'll let me here. First of all, I've been attending travel baseball tournaments all summer.
Yep. And
they've been allowing fans in. When I walk in, I get my temperature checked every time, and you fill out a questionnaire, which anybody can forge, but
yes,
obviously you can't when they take your temperature.
Yeah.
So, and there's, to my knowledge, been no spread at all. And we're talking about maybe 100 people at the most. Right. And the socially distancing is pretty questionable. The other thing, too, about this and learning the fans, and I think, J-Dub, this touches on something you and I brought up last week, the mental aspect of it, especially with not only some fans, but, the players, the coaches, and just the general public. It's just one more thing we're going to lose in the fall is not having college football. And I'm not so sure if, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I just don't think it's a good thing that if the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 decide, and American, let me include them, decide not to play, I'm not so sure it's a good thing. And everybody has valid points as to why they shouldn't be playing with students. I understand that, but at the same time, I think the country's mental health right now is on the edge. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is so much going on that is so negative, and I can't wait for September 26th because, in a way, life will be somewhat normal. I can watch an SEC football game or an ACC football game or Big 12 or an American and I'll have that somewhat sense of normalcy again. My chest can stick out a little bit. And I think that's the simmering issue right now with college football. Again, everybody's making valid points toward whatever position they have. But at the same time, for me, it's the mental health aspect. And I just think that's why I'm so passionate about getting some fans in there and getting some players playing actual football games even with there's not students there.
And
I think the country needs it.
And I can tell you, playing in an empty stadium, that's just not the same vibe.
Oh, I know.
No.
I will tell you that.
Yeah, I've been watching the NBA playoffs, and I gotta admit, the basketball's been pretty good, but the crowd, the atmosphere is crap.
Yep. When you can hear somebody bouncing a basketball and you hear no crowd noise, it's just insane. Now, the NHL was great, but that's a different story.
Yeah, and I'll put in my last final thought here on the topic before we wrap things up here in the first half of the show. The NFL is not allowing fans in the stadium. At least they're not even considering it until October.
Right.
Major League Baseball hasn't let anybody in the stadium yet.
But you're still producing a television product.
Backed off. The NBA's been playing in a bubble, and so is the NHL, which doesn't allow fans in by the nature of what it is. I think at this point, without fans, I think there's no reason that the college football teams that are willing to play shouldn't be playing. To go back to Wilkie's point, yeah, I want to see them play. I don't see there's any reason why they shouldn't be able to get out on the field and play at this point in time. My question and my concern, and the part I'm having a hard time understanding or wrapping my hands around, is the idea of having 20,000 people in the stands. That's the part that doesn't make any sense. Even if you just kick the can down the road a little bit and say, we're going to go through the first 3 weeks of the season without fans and reevaluate, I would be better with that. College football can be played without fans. We've already seen that other sports can do it. And that's the part I'm still struggling with. And we can talk about it a little bit more when we get to the second half of the show. I got to be the time police here. Guys, we'll wrap it up. We've got plenty to talk about in the second half of the show, including a couple players who've had to opt out due to some health issues. A former LSU star who might have gotten some interesting treatment while he was in Baton Rouge. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
That and a whole lot more when we come back to the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The online sports guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody. You have made it through halftime. We're now in the third quarter or the second half, whichever works best for you when you want to titling-wise.
I guess I should look this way.
This is the OSG Sports College Football Podcast. We are the online sports guys. And guys, in the first half of the show, we talked a lot about decision-making process, how and why decisions have been made in terms of where college football is going as we inch toward the start line here. I mean, gosh, we're looking at what, another 10 days or so before the first college football games kick off?
Or is it 6? We got some on the 29th, don't we?
Oh gosh, now I'm going to have to go back and look.
Wilkie, don't we still have the debut of your boy on the 29th?
That's been backed up to the 15th?
Oh,
September.
Darn.
Yeah, there's a lot of postponements and things like that. We're not looking at anything before Labor Day, but we'll see how that goes. And we talked in the first block quite a bit about the woes and the bungling and the odd decision-making process of the Big Ten. Now comes a report in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that the Big Ten is trying to upgrade their schedule to start playing, of all things, probably in the coldest month of the year in the Midwest.
Good
and
luck
that's
with that.
January.
Update. That's just tremendous.
The idea being that they could still get a season in and then give players an opportunity to be ready for the NFL draft and to play in the NFL the next season. Guys like Justin Fields and some of the other top name prospects. Is this a little bit presumptuous on their part, guys?
That's not the word I would use.
No. I'd use a more colorful word.
Well, obviously, Kevin Warren believes in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus. If he thinks he can pull this off in
The
January.
Great Pumpkin.
Do you really think Justin Fields and those type of players that have an NFL future are going to risk that and play in January, especially if they're playing outdoors?
In, say, Madison, Wisconsin.
And do you really think that it's feasible for Madison, Wisconsin? It's feasible to play double or triple headers at US Bank Stadium or at Lucas Oil Stadium or Ford Field, the indoor facilities they've talked about. And then in the age of COVID, which we just extensively talked about in the last segment, you're going to start a season in the height of cold and flu season. I rest my case.
I need to jump in and kind of add to what we said before. There is one game on the 29th. As of right now, Austin P and Central Arkansas is still going on August 29th.
In Conway, all right.
So just FYI, that is still on the march. But yeah, I would not want to go see Michigan State in January. I'm sorry. No.
I don't care. I don't care if it's at Lucas Oil. I don't care if it's at Ford Field. I don't care if it's at Kinnick. I don't care if it's in Galveston, Texas.
Nope.
It ain't happening.
Only if Tom Izzo and Juwan Howard are on the sidelines while I'll watch Michigan State.
In that time of year, yeah.
And that'll be
in January. In Breslin.
Yeah.
Another topic that we didn't get to in the first block of the show. The NCAA voted this week to give an extra year of eligibility to Division I fall athletes. The NCAA has been largely toothless and kind of quiet in a lot of the things that have been going on. But is this something that's the right thing to do?
I mean,
what John says.
I just, again, the four-letter NCAA is just not doing real well right now because they gave Talia Tagovailoa an instant play waiver when he went to Maryland, right? But then
you've won the Cade Mays.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. Why would you? I mean, the guy had no future left at Georgia, goes to Tennessee, just wants to play, and they turn him down because he's not a top tier quarterback. He's an offensive lineman. So that's me kind of fighting for that. The NCAA has no leg to stand on. Yeah, great. Give him an extension, but let the man play.
Yeah, actually, he transferred because of an incident on the practice field in Athens. Yeah.
The way things are going right now, be prepared to do that for the spring athletes too in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Free Cade Mays.
Oh my God.
But another instance where the NCAA has zero teeth. It's good, but it's just not enough.
At least they're offering up the opportunity for kids who miss out on a season to get an extra year if they want it.
Yay.
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 Mark Emmert for president.
Of what?
Something else.
of your lending institution.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, here's another one for you guys, and I'll let you react accordingly here. A quote from the governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, midweek this week when it came to college football, and Reeves taking, even though there are going to be fans in the stadium in Mississippi if they play, he put a kibosh on tailgating, which is a big deal.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, at Ole Miss.
Do they tailgate in Starkville?
He really did.
They do.
They do. Yes, they do.
They do.
to quote Reeves' tweets, I know this will not be popular, but there will be no game day social gatherings around stadiums, rallies, parties, tailgates. It's no fun, but it's what allows the athletes to play. I'd still rather be in the SEC with no tailgates than the Pac-12 or Big Ten with no football.
He's not wrong, but still, I'd rather enforce a mask in a stadium than trying to tell people you can't tailgate outside. That's just, that's just boneheaded.
Good luck on the enforcement of that, Tate.
I was going to say, how many barricades are going to be around the Grove in Oxford?
Yeah. They're going to hot toddy with or without tape.
Borrow some from neighboring states, or he's going to have to go to Builder's Supply or Home Depot and create them.
Talk about writing a check your body can't cash. Jiminy Christmas.
But you could, in theory, do that if you restrict the access to campus for people.
But the blocks across from campus with all the restaurants will be packed.
Yeah, you funnel everybody over to one spot into one spot, but then you create that whole other problem of even if you have a tailgate area, how do you keep everybody that's sitting there drinking and eating and doing the things that people tend to do in tailgates? How do you keep them from misbehaving or doing something they shouldn't be doing? Or
it's like punching a pillow.
Yeah, and again, I go back to what we talked about last week, J-Dub, about the mental health aspect. This is something that people live for, and government's coming in and trying to dictate that you can't do this, and it ain't going to go over well.
Now, I will say this: as much as I hate the idea of having fans in a stadium, I am for socially distanced tailgates. We did a socially distanced tailgate.
We did a socially distanced tailgate.
You can do that, and you have the entire massive parking lot to do what you got to do.
John,
it's crazy.
John, I'll ask you this, since your wife is the one who is pretty active in the college football tailgating scene on a weekly basis.
I was going to say, which one?
Is
There's
this
three of us here?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Nelson.
That's my father.
Is this something that that is workable? You know how insane tailgates get in the Southeast on college football campuses.
Yeah. Current plan for the boss is this: if there are folks who are allowed on campus and inside the stadium, the plan was basically hang out at the car by ourselves if we go into the stadium, sit in our socially distanced seating arrangement, watch the game is over, socially distanced egress, go back to the car, get in the car, turn on the engine, and come home. Boom. That's it.
Done and done.
First of all, Phil, not all great tailgating is confined to the Southeast. The best one I've ever been to was in Bozeman, Montana, for the Montana State Bobcats, and watching a spike camp with guys in Stetsons and Tony Roper boots and with a side of beef, doing a side of beef. It was awesome for a couple hundred people that were there, but it was one of the best tailgates I've ever been to.
And you talk about the world's largest cocktail party, right? Down in Florida, has nothing against Washington State, Idaho. Going to Fulmer and Moscow, Idaho. I mean, those tailgates are insane.
Big Sky Country knows how to party.
Yeah, because they got the cattle to take care of it. they got good cooking raw materials that they can play with on a weekly basis. That's
or even at the Apple Cup, UW and Wazoo. I mean, the tailgates at the Apple Cup are just I've never seen a crowd like that. Maybe at the Rose Bowl, I've seen a bigger crowd, but that's just insane. Right there, the Husky Stadium in Lake Washington, just massive.
I think what you do is, I think that the more responsibility that is placed on the officials associated with an event, the more angry you're going to have the folks who want to attend said event, because you're not assuming that they can take the responsibility to have said socially distanced tailgates. And I think that the more vocal local officials get in these situations about what you can't do, you're going to have people who will be just as puffy chested to do things that they want to do, and it could cause an issue.
Oh, and we've already seen that left to their own devices, people are going to do what people do. and basically not really pay attention to anything else.
Yeah.
Want to shift gears a little bit here. This is probably not going to be a topic J-Dub wants to talk about at length.
Well, then this means it'll be J-Dub talking about it, and it'll be very quick.
Yes. Crazy report that came out in USA Today this week about former LSU star and now former Washington Redskins running back Darius Geis.
Whoa.
Washington football team
star. I'm sorry.
There you
Stream
go.
of consciousness.
The man's wearing a T-shirt.
Stream of consciousness, not paying attention. Quoting the report, several instances of Geis allegedly raping two women as a freshman at LSU in 2016, and basically the inference from the story is those issues were just kind of overlooked or not really addressed by LSU.
I yield my time to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Well, I mean, Coach O, I met Coach O a couple of times, and I just, he's attributed that statement that said, everybody's girlfriend sleeps with everybody else, I just, again, I think this is an issue where, like you think back to what was it, Louisville, and all the issues with girls and players and things like that. I mean, star players get special treatment. I mean, it's just the way it goes. And I was at Wake Forest with, some folks that got some special treatment as well. Not like this, of course. It was around parking tickets, but we won't talk about Mike McCrary. We'll talk about him later. But I think that this is just one more issue from this poor, troubled young man's situation, allegedly. But what he did in Washington and what he's done since then, I don't know what to say. I think that I'm not surprised. I think that Coach O didn't know. I don't think he did. I'm not saying that the university didn't know, but because Orgeron was a D-line coach when Geis was in LSU, I think. Yeah. And I just think it's this poor man's got a troubled history. And some things are coming out now. I guess when it rains, it pours.
Yeah,
and
Darius Geis being a running back and Coach O being a D-line coach at the time, they rarely had any contact, if any. So it's kind of unfair to loop Coach O into that, though he's the head coach now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember the name of the defensive coordinator I had when I was at Wake Forest. That's how much time I spent with the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, I don't think Coach O, I agree with you, Wilkie. I think it's unfair that he's being brought in the middle of this.
Yeah, my issue really isn't with the way it's kind of fallen on Orgeron as much as it is the potential for there being issues at the university that were never addressed.
Talking about the systemic issues again, go back like the Kentuckys and the Louisvilles. I think something has to be done. I don't think Coach O has to fall on the sword here, but I think I think these girls' allegations should be listened to quite strongly, and I think that follow the evidence, and I think the university needs to do something to address it. I think if they continue to sweep it under the rug, it's just going to be worse for the university. So I think somebody's going to have to either lose their job somewhere or get reassigned or let some kind of sensitivity training with the university, but something has to be done.
Over the last 10 years, there have been incidents and cases and various things. LSU, a perennial Fulmer Cup contender. And I guess the question to John and to Wilkie, to John and to Wilkie here, is this a pattern thing down there? Is this looking more big picture? Do they tend to look is it one of those places kind of like where Baylor, there were all kinds of issues and red flags and they just completely looked the other way? Is this something that is a systemic problem in Baton Rouge? This is an isolated case? Or do we know enough to even make that kind of a leap?
I don't know enough of that to make any kind of leap about that. But J-Dub brings up the Louisville incident. That was with an assistant coach that brought in escorts and for recruits. And that's, I think the solution needs to be whoever was involved, if it's a member of the coaching staff that knew about it, and sweep it under the rug and then report it, that's show cause right there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's enough to maybe just short of ruining your career.
Yeah.
Which I think is enough. Obviously, it's up to the prosecutors whether to bring up legal charges on that. But the show cause enough is enough for me to really reprimand someone to the nth degree. But I've been to Baton Rouge many times. I can't say that is a systemic problem down there, even with the football program. I just know people, and Phil, you married a Louisiana native.
I was just going to say that.
They do things differently in Louisiana than in other places.
Yep. I mean, I've got some friends who are LSU fans, and they're beside themselves with this. They just don't think about this as being a systemic issue. They didn't, like my friends I talked to the other day about this. They're like, I don't see any evidence of this. So, I mean, maybe it's the blinders on. Like, I'm a Washington football team fan. Trust me, I know what blinders are like. But yeah, this is something serious, and the university needs to address it head on and not try to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, and the school's interim president has said that they're opening up an investigation. They're going to try and backtrack what happened here. And the reason I bring it up about more of a bigger picture kind of a problem is because there have been, I'd have to go back and look to the exact number, but over the course of the last, at least 5 or 6 years, I can remember us talking about or writing about or reading about various players there who have gotten in trouble for similar type of incidents, some of which went away, some of which didn't, some of which cost them their college football careers, and some that didn't. And it's more of a generalization that a big college football program sometimes has things looked at the other way.
Especially in a small town.
Yeah.
And I would reference, for anybody that wants to do some homework, I guess the homework assignment for the listeners and the viewers this week would go and find the New York Times expose on Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. So just as an example, you saw me show Jessica Luther's book on sportsmanlike conduct about what the whole situation was in Waco, Texas, where Baylor is concerned. I guess that's required reading in book form. Required reading in newspaper form would be the New York Times piece about Tallahassee, Florida, and how I guess you could say, to a certain degree, that there is a proportionality of the smaller the town, the more influential the university is along with their athletic program. So it's happened. It will continue to happen. It's just how things are in college athletics. Yeah, J-Dub, what's up?
But I was just saying, I've played it, all the way up to semi-professional level. And, I've always been told by my coaches, when you are on a member of a team, and Wilkie, you can agree with this, your baseball experience, when you're on a member of a team and you put a uniform on your back, if you do anything out in the public, you are an emissary, you are an ambassador for this school, you're an ambassador for this team, and don't do anything that would make the team look bad, the university look bad, or yourself look bad. And so, I mean, that was beat into my skull by Bill Dooley at Wake Forest. And it just was what I just, some of these things that happen, it's a privilege issue, and it's a access issue, and it's a rush to stardom issue. And, I guess to the victor go the spoils, so to speak. And I from my playing days, I can't imagine doing anything to make my team look bad.
Hey, guys, one last topic here before we wrap things up here on the review as we kind of close in on the hour-long show that we do. Story out of the Atlanta area here where we're based. Georgia State freshman quarterback Michael Colasurdo has decided to sit out the 2020 season as Georgia State, a member of the Sun Belt, is on schedule to play at this time because of he had a COVID-related heart issue. Colasurdo had COVID over the summer. He's basically been recovered from it, but they found during the course of his post-virus examinations that he showed some signs of possibly having myocarditis, and that's really been the one thing that scared the living crap out of athletic administrators here, as we've talked most of the show about who's playing college football and who isn't. Our thoughts go out to him. Hopefully he will have time to recover, and most kids, if something like that, if you're able to catch it early and medicate and do the things that you need to do to get healthy, he should hopefully be able to have a nice, solid career at Georgia State. But this is the one thing everybody's been worried about. Hopefully it's not an indicator of more cases, but we know there are some. Your thoughts here before we wrap things up on the show?
I mean, my thoughts are this is another reason I'm glad the SEC is out of these heart tests before you can allow it to be back. Again, there's so many things about this virus we don't know about, lung damage, heart damage. So, I mean, this is just another example that we need to take care of our student athletes. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Colasurdo and his family.
Yeah, and I'll be the quick soundbite here. Obviously, this is one of the first ones we'll see. I don't think it's one of the last. Obviously, there's an issue at TCU with a quarterback as well who's made the decision to opt out this year. First and foremost, it's about your own personal health. And that, as we know, it's close to all of us in one manner, way, shape, or form. So just take care of yourself and everything else falls into place. Wilkie.
This is the one thing I actually read about. And the cases are extremely rare for college-age kids to have myocarditis. And so there's no really definitive study about the effects on kids, athletes that age, especially physically superior athletes that are, I guess, the picture of health. All the studies I saw were on 50-year-olds. And mainly in Europe and in Asia. So, I guess there's no definitive study at all about that. All I know, it's extremely rare for college-age kids to get it. And obviously, take care of your health. Sit out a while. But you can recover from this. And unfortunately, it's a byproduct of COVID for college-age kids. So, yeah.
And one thing we can't forget in this, kudos to Georgia State for having the testing procedures in place that found this.
Yeah.
So kudos for them for doing what's best for their student athletes.
Guys, let's wrap things up here on this show as the clock comes close to 60 minutes.
Okay, guys, riddle me this.
Okay.
We're in late August. We should be talking about week 0.
Yes. And
Austin Peay in Central Arkansas.
That's the one we need to be talking about.
As I was about to say, we're inching ever so close to the starting line here. I think we got to find some time next week to talk about the actual games that are going to be played that are on the schedule.
Hallelujah.
And start moving forward here because we are going to have football.
Thought we're going to be played.
I don't know how many games we're going to see, but we are going to see games. We're on the clock. Everybody's training. Everybody that's on schedule to play is in the midst of practice. So there will be plenty of that. There will be previews, I hope, and so much more. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you haven't done it already, we have a phone app. It's real easy to find. You can look it up on the Google Play Store. You can look it up on the iTunes Store. Or the Apple Store.
Right there.
The Apple Play Store, yes.
Yes, that. Showing it like everybody else.
Stop playing with your Apple.
It has a lot of
Okay.
content.
Didn't need that visual.
No, definitely not.
You cracked up the host, Wilkie. Nicely
Yeah, let me
done.
go ahead and wrap up.
What happens on the review stays on the review.
Look for us on social media at OSG Sports. Pretty much anywhere you can think of, we are there. For OSG Nelson, for Jay Wilkerson 16, and for OSG Day Dub, I am OSG Phil. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.